First agenda item is called to order. The time is 10:37, Tuesday, January 28th. A quorum is present. All right. Would you please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. By the way, we'll add the Texas pledge during our next meeting. Next agenda item is approval of commission meeting minutes as of November 26th. Excuse me, is that better? Okay, thank you. I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. We will now vote. Approved. Our votes have been recorded. The next agenda item will be enforcement recognition and awards. Chief Kirkendall.
Good morning, Chairman Lillard, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Victor Kirkendall, Chief of Law Enforcement for TABC. It is my pleasure today to present employee recognitions and awards on behalf of the Enforcement Division. As for our first, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and stamp part of this. Go ahead. Sweet. Move around. And I'll ask General Nettles to stand with me, sir. And Captain John Alton. You'll come up here, sir. As our first presentation, we'd like to present Captain John Alton with General Nettles Recognition of Excellence. As you may be aware, sir, in law enforcement as well as other first responders in the military, ceremonial traditions are very important to the men and women who serve in our professions. While TABC is a specialized law enforcement investigative agency, our officers do not wear traditional uniforms, which creates challenges when our men and women who serve this agency are laid to rest. In the past, we have struggled to properly acknowledge the service our employees provide to this agency and to the state of Texas, especially during times when the executive command staff's attendance is required elsewhere, as they were during sunset in the 86th legislative session. Realizing this, General Nettles directed the Enforcement Division to stand up the agency's first Honor Guard team. Even before assuming the responsibilities of commanding the agency's first Honor Guard team, Captain Alton received a number of additional duties and responsibilities, such as commanding the agency's special response team after a decision was made to return the responsibilities here at the headquarters. He was also tasked to facilitate our agency's official relationship with the Texas Department of Emergency Management's State Operations Center and stand up the agency's first emergency operations center that would be activated during times of natural disasters and critical events affecting this agency. Despite these added responsibilities, Captain Alton realized the importance of the Honor Guard team and what it means to the employees and their families of this agency. In just the first year of the Honor Guard team's existence, they have already provided honors to several former employees' funerals and memorial services, including that of Sherman Beth, one of TABC's former executive directors. In just the coming weeks, the Honor Guard team will again be called to provide service again during the memorial service for Jim Glover, a former deputy executive director and chief of enforcement. The Honor Guard team has also represented TABC at several ceremonial events, such as the annual Texas Peace Officers Memorial at our state capitol. Sadly, the Honor Guard team also provided honors during the memorial service of Agent Kyle Summers this past September. This marks the first time, services were provided at the loss of one of our current employees. At that time, we learned of Kyle's death. The Honor Guard team was in training on the opposite side of the state. Despite the Honor Guard training ending just the day before and hundreds of miles away, Captain Alton was able to ensure that they were properly outfitted and dispatched to El Paso, Texas to provide the honors first thing and following more. Captain Alton makes the honor guard team operations seem so effortless and seamless, which speaks to his dedication and commitment, not only to his team, but the whole agency. Therefore, we recognize him with General Nettles' recognition of excellence. Next, we would like to go ahead and provide the awards for Life Saving Awards. So TABC's Life Saving Award, along with awards for Valor and Purple Heart, are a product of General Nettles' implementation of TABC's VoiceLink. For those that don't know what VoiceLink is, it's an online submission for all TABC employees on ideas the agency can make improvements and suggestions for innovation. Out of this, Sergeant Santonio suggested a creation of awards for Valor, Life Saving, and Purple Heart. While these ideas stem from enforcement and are commonly associated by actions by law enforcement officers, they are not exclusive to the Enforcement Division. Just as the policies and procedures were being finalized, ports of entry awarded one of their employees with the Life Saving Award. Here today, we would like to bestow the Life Saving Award to a select number of agents for their exceptional effort that they have provided in recent years. In the future, we would like to make this an annual ceremonial event each January. So for the first Life Saving Award, I invite Agent Yuri Alvarez to join us up here. On June 6, 2018, Agent Alvarez was enjoying a meal break at a local eatery in San Antonio, Texas, with a couple of her fellow agents when a female customer began to choke at a table near where she was seated. Agent Alvarez quickly identified that the victim was in distress and appeared to be choking. Agent Alvarez leaped into action and immediately began administering a Heimlich maneuver and was able to eventually dislodge the obstruction from the victim's windpipe. The victim then began coughing and was able to breathe again. And in recognition of her efforts, we present Agent Alvarez with the TABC Life Saving Award for acting quickly and without hesitation and contributing to saving a life during a rapidly evolving situation. Next, we would like to recognize the following agents. And as I call your name, please come forward. Agent Greg Lewis. Agent Andrew Pena. Agent Ben Shepard. And Sergeant Charlie Graham. On March 21st, 2018, the above listed agents were assisting in the instruction of TABC's fitness test battery for members of the Texas Military Forces Security at the Texas Parks and Wildlife Training Facility in Choke Canyon. For those that aren't familiar with Choke Canyon, this is a very remote training location where medical services are limited due to the remoteness of the location. While the agents were administering the fitness test, one of the security members began to show signs that he was in distress and immediately collapsed from a heart attack. The agents rushed to the victim's assistance and found him to be unconscious and unresponsive. His breathing was also found to be labored and uneven before he eventually stopped breathing and no longer had a pulse. The agents utilized the agents immediately began administering chest compressions and summoned additional assistance by calling 911. The agents utilized a trauma kit, which also contained an automated external defibrillator, otherwise known as AED. And eventually EMS did make location. But before this, the victim's breathing was restored, but was still uneven. In recognition of this, EMS did make location. The victim was actually transported to the hospital by air ambulance. And in recognition of this, we present the agents with the TABC's Life Saving Award for their quick action to provide critical life-saving measures. And had it not been for their actions, the victim may not have survived the medical emergency that day. It would not be a presentation by me if I didn't say something up. But actually, it was Robert Coulter, not Ben Shepherd, and he was here. They're all sitting there looking at me like, "Are you gonna call him?" So, Ben was present, but these were more effort that was given that day to provide life-saving measures. Correct.
Chairman, I wonder if we could get the commission.
Yeah, you bet. That's great. Absolutely.
Come on, folks. Let's get a stand by.
No,
Congratulations. Stand. So let's do yours to stand. Wait a minute.
I think we're gonna have to have you up a little bit.
Maybe we should back up.
Little closer, girls.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
My turn now? Okay, so okay, before our employees come up, Director Jared Staples, Major Ron Swinson, John Sidbury, and David Duncan. So I'm proud to share with you a success story of this agency about their fight against human trafficking. Since our agency began training members of the Alcohol Beverage Commission, the alcohol beverage industry, to recognize the warning signs of trafficking, reports for this agency have risen by more than 175%. In calendar year 2017, when TABC received 26 complaints regarding human trafficking, after we launched our industry training initiative in 2018, that number during the year 2019 jumped to 72. This success is thanks in cooperation within our agency and with our business partners. I'd like to commend the efforts of all our industry members, those who donated thousands of hours of their employees' time to participate in the training. I'd also like to recognize these individuals. Jared Staples for coordinating the training across the state. I think we've trained approximately 30% of the beer truck drivers. Ron Swinson for developing the training. And then we have John Sidbury and David Duncan, who once the complaints come in, we did the investigation, help handle the prosecution of those cases. So by their effort, we've increased prosecution by 12% over 2018. So good job for all y'all. I recognize y'all with our coin, and of course our fight continues. I look forward to hopefully bringing y'all more success stories next year. recognized for. So I'm going to show one more time to come down.
Jared's Before we go to the next agenda item, I just wanted to share a brief observation that I think is particularly appropriate today as we recognize life-saving heroics as well as our honor guard. In December, I had the unfortunate but dutiful responsibility to attend the funeral of Houston Police Department Sergeant Christopher Brewster, who was shot and killed in the line of duty. As I sat there in the funeral with about 5,000 people, I sat behind Mayor Turner and Police Chief Acevedo, and I sat between the chairman of DPS and the chairman of Parks and Wildlife, the three state police forces there, all of us in solidarity at this very tragic moment. One of the things that gave me tremendous pride was looking over and seeing our color guard, along with the color guards of various numerous state law enforcement agencies, as well as even as far as Canada, who came down in this incredibly sorrowful time. Tragically, that same day, a Clear Creek police sergeant was killed in the line of duty. She was run over as she was attempting to make an arrest by the individual she was trying to arrest. She had 3 children. And so seeing our color guard there was incredibly stirring for me, and it gave me a great sense of pride. As some of you know, I was a cop's son, and I remember the pride that I had when my father would leave each day with a sidearm on his side. Occasionally, he would have to go to ceremonies where he would wear his uniform, and I was 10 years old. He'd take my hand, and we'd go do that. But I also remember the nights alone with my mom having dinner while he was off, something tragic happening. And so I recognize that all of us here have that same sense of anxiety every time our law enforcement people go out to do their duty. That thin blue line that all of us recognize. And so when we see our color guard, it represents everybody. It represents everyone from licensing, marketing, education, audit, human resources, business services, government relations, everyone, the commissioners who sit here before you. So those flags, those standards that we have represent all of us. And as long as they fly and represent all those things that we hold dear, this agency will still be viable and meaningful. So I'm very grateful to all the efforts. And General Nettles, thank you for that incredible recognition, that so much of which you've initiated. At this time, the next agenda item will be the annual production limit order. Ms. Horton.
Good morning, Chairman. Can you all hear me okay?
Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Shana Horton. I'm with your General Counsel's office, and I'm here to present you your annual production limit order. As you know, the holders of brewers permits and manufacturers licenses, if they produce under a certain amount of beer and ale per year, have the ability to sell that beer on premises or consumption on premises, or for brewers permittees, they can also sell it under the new beer to go laws. However, they have to be underneath a certain limit per year. That was originally set at 175,000 barrels per year, but we are statutorily required as an agency to increase that each year by the amount of the population increase. So we talked to the state demographer, and he gave us a 2019 population growth of 1.28%. If we apply that to last year's total limit, our new limit will be 179,544 barrels. And this order just sets that limit. It's now before you for your deliberation decision.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? All right, at this time, I move to approve the annual, I move to approve the annual production limit order as recommended by staff. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Very well, we will now vote. Motion is approved. Thank you. The next agenda item will be a briefing on Paisano season. Very busy time for this agency. Chief Rainey and Director Black.
Good morning, Chairman Lilly and Commissioners. My name is Brian Black. I'm the Director of Communications and External Relations here at TABC, and I'm proud to be presenting with Chief John Rainey today. In just a few moments, Chief Rainey will show you some very impressive numbers. But before we get to those numbers, I want to take just a little moment to set the scene for you for what Paisano season is all about. Paisano season is the busiest time of the year for our folks that work at Port of Entry. It's a time of the year, 3 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, where folks who live in the United States travel down to Mexico to visit their friends and family for the holidays. And it's when they come back, some of them bring alcohol, and of course, when they do, they need to stop at our ports of entry. And that's where we see a lot of busy lines. In fact, sometimes it's up to 14 hours at some of these ports of entries. So we sent down our videographer, Juan Rodriguez, to give you guys and our audience a glimpse of what it's like a day in the life of Paisano season. So let's take a look at that video real fast right now.
Unless you've been down to the border and you see the volume coming across, or you see what's being confiscated, you don't truly understand the importance of this mission by TABC.
Paisano season is the time of the year when foreign nationals come across to visit their relatives on this side of the bridge, and American citizens go on the other side to visit their relatives in Mexico. How many miles? Our regulatory compliance officers here at TABC, they have inspection authority on vehicles and persons to collect taxes and prevent the importation of illegal and illicit beverages that come across. What we do is we prevent about 10,000 illegal containers a year from coming into the United States. During Paisano season, we collect approximately $800,000 worth of revenue here in about 12 days, of the $7 million that we collect annually along the border.
It's more than just collecting the revenues for the state of Texas. We're doing a public safety service, making sure these products that are harmful to Texans don't get into the Texas marketplace. Although this looks neat and cool, the scorpion in there over time will start to deteriorate. It becomes tainted alcohol. You can't bring it back to the United States. And our RCOs help to prevent that.
We have prevented the importation of over $2 billion of methamphetamine, which is the last year and a half, and the importation of 10,000 illegal containers. I could not be more proud of our regulatory compliance officers. They're literally offer 12 hours a day out engaging the public as they come back through. And they're helping to protect the country.
Protecting Texans. That's a pretty awesome mission that we have, and I'm so proud to see the incredible work that our folks do at the Port of Entry. So we'll talk about the incredible work right now. I'll push it over to the Chief Rainey.
Okay. Here are the stats for this year's silent season. I'd like to take this opportunity, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm John Rainey. I'm the Chief Port of Entry. My folks did an exceptional job. They worked 12-hour shifts. They worked on their days off in Laredo and Eagle Pass to accomplish the mission during these 12 important days for us. So for our season stats, our total alcoholic stamps sold was over 220,000 stamps. Our total revenue for this year for those 12 days was $765,000. Moving to the next slide, it breaks it down by individual bridges. So as you can see that most of the revenue is collected in Laredo and Eagle Pass during this busy time. So Laredo had almost $450,000 collected, and Eagle Pass had over $100,000 collected. And in the last slide, the disallowed product during these 12 days totaled 1,902. The most important ones are obviously the illicit product, which was 363 containers disallowed, excess 672 containers, and minors 46 containers that were taken away from us. So that is my presentation, unless you all have any questions.
So do you have and if you don't, get back to us, a percentage of total, the percentage for a year attributed to Paisano season? So what, for example?
It's normally 34%.
30, well, there you go.
That's
a good number. All right. In just essentially 6 weeks?
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. That's a tremendous effort. Chief, thanks. Director?
Thank you.
And that was an outstanding video.
Yeah. Man taking the pictures around here, he's the one that did it. He did a great job, and we're lucky to have him.
Colonel, you should have sunglasses on. I think it would have looked a little more menacing. I don't know what the attraction is with scorpions and alcohol. It just doesn't seem appetizing to me at all. But well done. So we will move to the next agenda item. Excuse me. Briefing on Enterprise Data Solutions, Director Mosley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm actually going to be up here in front of you. I have the next 3 items, so I apologize if you get tired of me. I wanted to give you, because we have some new commissioners on the commission, I wanted to provide to you some contextual background for the TABC Transformation Initiative, for which the technology is a huge piece of that. The primary objectives, they're on the screen. I'm not going to read them to you, but I wanted to let you know that for the past 15 to 18 years, the staff and management has been operating on technology that was developed 15 to 18 years ago. We have one commercial off-the-shelf product that is beyond end of life, and then we have about 17 singular functionality applications that they have to go between to do their jobs. This blend of old technology and the business workflows, pardon me, that were developed over time because of the confines of this technology is the impetus for this transformation. We have 3 major projects going on right now. It's the Enterprise Data Solution, which I will start with, public website redesign, and the Alcohol Industry Management System. That is the one that will replace the bulk of those 18 applications. Before we go into the actual updates, I do need to tell you that we are required to do what's called advanced contract monitoring. And I will be providing you, because of the project size and their costs, I'll be providing you insight into the contractual amount of that, the purpose of the projects, and the progress that we're making as we go through the biennium. So let's get into Enterprise Data Solution. And the point of it is to create a modern data warehouse, data repository, and a place for reporting to come from. And the contract amount on it is 1.43 million. Our progress to date is 28%. That is not contractual scope project. That actually includes the state's procurement and contracting process as well, which is done internally. The project vendor is SenseCorp. Our primary audience is TABC, and the solution platform is Google Cloud. I am very excited about Google Cloud. You all may have heard of Google, right? They are data kings, and they finalized their contract with the state of Texas in December. We will be the first state agency to use Google Cloud Platform and their toolkits, such as analytics, mapping, intelligence, along those lines. This project is going to provide a cleaner, more secure data environment with a centralized platform for data storage, document repository, and most especially consistency in data provided to all of the divisions and up to you all in reporting, so that you all can have a clean understanding of what's going on instead of us having to pull data from multiple systems and try to match it up. I'm going to stop at this point and see if there's any questions for Enterprise Data Solution. It's an exciting subject. Public website redesign is our second update for you. The purpose of it is to create a modern, more professional look and feel for our website. Obviously, it's the face of the agency that most people see when they go to the internet. And the contract amount on it is $293,373. Project to date is 54%. Industry and public is our primary audience. Deloitte is our vendor. And our solution platform is texas.gov. And if you've renewed your driver's license online, you're familiar with texas.gov. So that's the platform that we'll be using. The new website is going to provide industry and public with access to better organized, better defined, and more timely information. And we are putting a governance process in place so that when any of the business divisions want to provide content for the website, it goes through a vetting process. And then once it reaches communications, it will then also be edited and continue with the consistency of a cleaner approach on our site. We're also improving access to publicly available information on licensees. An example of this is what's out there now called public inquiry. And we're also just looking at it from just the site visitors, if they, just the type of user experience partly that they're going to have. I've brought along I brought along a couple of images for you. I want to note for the record, these are prototypes. There is no TABC data contained in these prototypes at this point in time. But this is the top half of the first page. And it is being designed again with the user in mind. It's using a search capability called MadLib. And so if you're a retailer in this example, you can identify yourself as that, which refines your search immediately. And then you can tell the system what it is that you're interested in doing. Another example is this image where we'll have dynamic sections for news and notices. Another example would be for social media, where the most relevant and timely information is on the site, and then other older information will be pulled or archived appropriately. In future meetings, we're going to have more demos and visual updates for you on the website as we continue down that path. I'll stop here if you have any questions on the public website. Okay. The big one is the Alcohol Industry Management System. You will hear me refer to it as AIMS, most likely as I go through this. The purpose of this project is to provide a comprehensive single solution for the entire agency to use to efficiently and effectively service and regulate the alcohol beverage industry. The contract amount is $2.7 million. 24% is the progress to date. The primary audience is TABC, but it's also industry. They will have account management capabilities and insight into their account if they're licensed or permitted by the agency. So they'll be able to track what's going on in their area. The vendor is Sistema Technologies, and the solution platform is a software as a service called GovToBiz. During the formal request, I want to give you a little bit of background on GovToBiz. During the formal request for proposal process last summer, we reviewed 15 submissions of different vendors who wanted this project to be given to them or awarded to them. And we selected GovToBiz on three main things. One is their very forward-thinking approach to their software. Also, the functionality that they already had built in was obviously on track with what we were needing. And most importantly was their willingness to adapt their product to the TABC specific needs because of statute and rules that we have to have in place. We're very excited. We're already working with them. It is in flight. The agency is moving away from this fragmented, disparate approach to the single comprehensive solution, because it will lead to quicker ability to put applicants in business, which is always a top goal for us. We will have online digital submissions of original and renewal applications. Right now it's paper, and when they turn that paper in, we type it in. And then the document has to be stored in a document repository that we then have to go back and find if they have any questions. Online account management for industry, as I mentioned earlier, and it will include online payment capability. They will, just like with the public website, they will have access to better information. It's better defined and more timely for the industry as well as for staff. And they'll have improved ability for online reporting submissions. A great example is excise tax reporting. We have 5 short video clips that provide just a sample of the functionality that's going to be available in Ames. Again, for the record, any and all information provided within these video clips, wherever TABC is referenced, is prototype and is not actual TABC data. The first video is a marketing video that GovToBiz uses on their website. I chose it because it provides a great visualization of what their solution is going to provide. Having to check out the website. We're doing PowerPoint and YouTube at the same time.
Meet Tom. Tom heads a regulatory licensing agency, but he's bogged down by how tedious and clunky everything is. So many statutory nuances, interdependencies between different departments, unrealistic goals, and to top it off, all those stressful administrative hearings. Yikes! But then Tom discovered GovToBiz. GovToBiz gives Tom everything he needs to run his entire agency on one platform, with all the rules, regulations, policies, and statutes built in. He can issue, inspect, enforce, and service licenses in real time. Because all his licensees and employees are on one online platform, they can collaborate more efficiently. Applications, complaints, and inspections can be moved seamlessly between people and even across departments. Because everything is automatically tracked and logged, Tom can easily pull a report on anything. Those administrative hearings are now a piece of cake. GovToBiz is cloud-based and 100% mobile compatible, so Tom doesn't have to buy any new equipment. It's secure and ADA and PCI compliant, so he can focus on his agency rather than worrying about technology. Ever since he chose GovToBiz, Tom's agency is running super efficiently, and his customers, employees, and field staff all love him. Be like Tom. Get GovToBiz and make licensing easy.
The next video provides an example of filing a complaint using an online form that will be integrated into Ames. The reason we wanted to show you this particular video is we do have an online form that people can enter information now, but it's not tied to the system. And this new process will have the online form displayed on the public website, but it will actually be integrated with the system. Data will be collected directly into AIMS and then distributed to the proper modules for automated workflows to be triggered. The reason I wanted to show you this one is just one of the many manual processes that we have to handle right now, and they will be automated when we go live. I'll let it play out. We will be doing metrics based on all the data coming in as well, so we can provide information to you all if you're interested in it in the future. The next video is going to basically show one of the biggest advantages for having a single comprehensive system. It's the dashboards that is available to management. A lot of this is already built into the system. We've not even touched yet on what needs to be customized because at this point it's a pretty robust reporting system. It's going to give executive, you all, and senior management a glance at metrics for any functionality, whether it be licensing, audit, inspections, investigation, ports of entry, as you just saw. And it also allows management to see where bottlenecks are occurring within our own internal workflows. It lets us identify business trends that then helps the agency make better decisions as they move forward. And then other operational metrics, as like I said, can be designed by us. If you want to go ahead and just stop, I mean, it goes pretty well. This next to last video is representative of another manual process that will be automated within AIMS. The TABC application process right now, if someone applies and they have deficiencies in their application, it's a matter of trading phone calls, emails going back and forth between staff. Sometimes they don't get the email if it goes to the etc. And what we're doing is automating that process with, I'm going to wait, I'm going to hush to. Sorry. What it allows is the staff to go in, go through the application, identify electronically on checklists that are provided within the system what is missing. And that automatically notifies the industry applicant, where they will see it on their dashboard as a notification. They will get an email, they will get a text. We will make sure that they hear from us that we need it and they are able to respond in a much more timely manner. And then the checklist is available to them on their dashboard as the applicant, and it's also available to us internally to see what's outstanding. The very last video and the last item that I have for you today is an example of how we're going to be using artificial intelligence inside AIMS. And this is an applicant doing a status check, and they'll be talking to a chatbot. And it will be available 365, 24/7.
Hi, I'm Abe. I am the automated customer service agent for GovTwoBiz. How can I help you?
I would like to know the status of my application.
Sure. May I have your case number?
26217
Got it. What is the phone number on the case?
218-542-5447.
We have reviewed your application. We need some additional information from you to continue. Would you like me to tell you what we need?
Yes.
As part of the application, you were provided a floor plan of your location. The provided floor plan appears to be a shared retail location. Please send the floor plan with the highlighted area intended for display and sale of alcoholic beverages.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
It is an automated voice, right? But it's pretty cool. We'll be able to handle customer service needs, again, 24/7, 365. And that's, again, just another example of what we're going to use for artificial intelligence and business analytics. That concludes all of my remarks for today. Thank you for your patience, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Question?
I could just say, as I interrupt you,
I'm so impressed that I've been here 6 years to see where you all have taken this. We've talked about it and I commend you on
Here, here.
job well done.
I had a question on it. Certainly looks very user-friendly and intuitive, but there's got to be training on the industry side. What's the plan for that?
Absolutely. We have a change management plan that includes training that will involve internal staff, and we also will travel with state and train industry. We'll make it available online as well as do as much in person as possible, but we are mapping out that plan as part of the early planning.
Excellent.
Commissioner Marina.
I just had a one quick question on the implementation. And so the AIMS and the data solutions are both at about 28%, not quite. What's the timeline to get that to 100%?
With enterprise data solution, that will be, we're doing part of it in this year, and then they're pausing and waiting on the AIMS solution to be built out, and then they will come back in the second year of the biennium and work to finish out the data solution, probably April to June of 21. There will be modular rollouts of AIMS with the full implementation no later than July of 21 at this point in time.
Thank
you. And to add, just to add, even though you didn't ask, the public website will do a soft rollout internally in March of this
I figured
year.
that was at 54%.
Yeah,
That's probably
right.
the easier piece, so
Yeah.
that would be earlier,
Exactly.
but yeah.
And we're looking to have that by September 1.
Great, thank you very much.
And I know we've been working diligently, you have been working the agency on a new website for quite some time. It's not just like buying new stationery. It's incredibly complex and you cannot kind of got to get it right? It's pretty expensive if you don't. So we're delighted that this new website is close to completion. I did have one question on the deficiency identification. So procedurally, if I am applying for a license or something with the agency, and I'm not here, and there's a problem, I haven't dotted an I or crossed a T properly. So rather than me just sort of sitting and waiting as the circle turns, we will automatically get back to them and say, we've received your application. This is a deficiency. Please complete it.
Yes, sir. It will be done electronically, and they will go in. They'll have basically a built-in checklist. And this is missing, this is missing. They'll check the appropriate, they being the staff. Will
The
check
licensing
appropriate box.
staff,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. And then
Okay.
that will automatically trigger a notification to the applicant.
That is certainly an improvement. Well done.
A quick question. First of all, very impressive. Thank you for all your work on it. But I wonder about the AI interface. If somebody feels like the computer isn't following them and they're beating their head against a wall, how hard would it be for somebody to get a hold of a real person?
Not at all, unless it's, off hours, right? But if they're calling during business hours, they can certainly contact licensing directly. It's not to be replaced, that just to enhance. That's what we're hoping to use those features for.
Great. No further questions.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Well done. As we're transitioning to the next phase, I did want to just mention, because we have 3 commissioners here who live on or close to, within approximately 80 miles of the border, and our regulatory compliance officers, therefore, you may or may not know that we almost lost that function, that the initial sunset report was to abolish our regulatory compliance officer teams, which I think would have been a great tragedy for this agency. But Chief Rainey and his team, as well as all of us, fought for keeping them. And public safety is enhanced. $2 million worth of methamphetamine, that's real stuff. That would have ended up in somebody's hands had it not been, Chief, for your people on the border who work in sometimes grueling conditions. And I know my fellow commissioners, especially Commissioner Atkins, who lives in El Paso, if they haven't already, I know they'd love to come see your people's operations because it's quite impressive and really diligent. Great patriots and servants of the state of Texas. So thank you again, Chief. All you guys do. All right, so the next agenda item will be a briefing on the Texas Workforce Commission self-assessment. Director Fletcher.
Hi, good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Can you hear me all right? All right. So today I'm going to be talking about an upcoming audit.
You mind moving the mic a little bit closer. Yeah,
Better?
yeah, thank you.
So I'll be talking about an audit that the Texas Workforce Commission is tasked with. Their Civil Rights Division is tasked by law, state law, to conduct a review of all state agencies, personnel policies, and procedure systems on a staggered schedule over 6 years. So our last review was in fiscal year 14, and at that time, our policies were certified as in compliance. So the purpose of this review is really to identify areas of risk and identify opportunities to improve and enhance our best practices. So the scope of the review, they will be looking at several different select policies and procedures on the HR side. They'll be focusing on hiring and promotion, compensation practices, performance evaluations, including looking at the list of overdue evaluations. They'll be looking at disciplinary actions, ADA accommodations, equal employment opportunity, including sexual harassment. Part of that is looking at if we're in compliance with training. The requirement is that we train all new employees within our first 30 days of hire on sexual harassment and EEO provisions, and then they do a refresher training every 2 years. We just pushed out that refresher training in January to all of our employees. We're almost very close to being 100% compliance with that. So I expect by the time the on-site review, that will be 100% compliance as well. They'll really be, the auditors will be looking at all of the policies and procedures and be pulling samples of records and files just to compare if we're in compliance with statutes and our policies. At the beginning of January, they required that we filled out an assessment and assessed ourselves whether or not we were in compliance. We provided that to the Workforce Commission with copies of all the relevant policies and procedures, and they provided our on-site review date of March 24th. Our self-assessment did indicate that we're in compliance with all the sections. So after the review, once they're on board, they'll be reviewing all the samples of documents and policies, and then they'll conduct an exit conference with a preliminary report identifying any findings, if any, at that point. They'll give TABC management an opportunity to respond to those within 5 to 10 days. And then if there are any findings, we'll have an opportunity to implement those recommendations as soon as possible, but no later than the end of the fiscal year. And as we make those recommendations and revise the policies, we'll be providing those policies to the Workforce Commission. So in closing, assuming that we have no findings, immediately they'll go to the exit conference. That'll be included in the final report. So assuming if we have any findings, they'll delay that until we mitigate those findings. And then they'll provide that final certification checklist report and certify if we're in compliance. Workforce Commission is going to do everything, work together with us to ensure that we meet those compliance points. It's not one of the got-you audits. They're really just trying to help and assess. So once we receive that certification compliance, they will also bill us for their services. So the average cost is about $78 per hour on that, and it could vary depending on how long they're here with us in the audit. So finally, at the point of that, they will prepare a final report for state leadership, and that report will indicate whether we were fully compliant, to whether we're fully compliant after implementing the recommendations, or if for whatever reason they made recommendations that we did not implement, our management response, indicating the reasons why will be published on that report as well. That's all I have for you today. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? So since the last time this audit was completed was in fiscal year 14, so 6 years, I would assume that you have procedures in place so that we don't review these policies and procedures every 6 years.
Correct. I think we review them annually or at least biannually after the end of each legislative session.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions. Thank you very much. Now we come to my favorite section, the FY 2020 operating budget. Director Mayo.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Welcome back to Austin. I will apologize in advance. I'm a little nasally. I don't always sound like this.
I think we all have that.
Cedar fever has been lots of fun. But with that, I'll get started. I don't have a chatbot or anything as exciting, but I will try to follow it up. So today I'll be covering two different topics. First off, the 2020 operating budget, which we affectionately call the governor's operating budget. And then secondly, I'll be talking about the annual report of non-financial data. So firstly here, the operating budget is required by the Texas government, by the General Appropriations Act in Article 9. It's due on odd numbered years on December 1st. So it is part of the 2-year legislative appropriation cycle. The operating budget has 2 primary components to include the budget by strategy and the budget by method of finance. Excuse me. Budget by strategy, as defined by the Legislative Budget Board, includes a budget and other resources dedicated to achieving goals and objectives. So these are defined again by the LDB. And budget by method of finance shows where our source of funding comes from. So for us, we have GR, some federal funding, and a small amount of appropriated receipts. This slide outlines our budget by strategy. You'll see here enforcement is our largest strategy, surprise. And then our method of finance outlined here, we are 99% general revenue funded. So our $500,000 here for federal funds is including a federal grant. And we have a small amount of appropriated receipts, which include things like excuse me, asset forfeiture that we receive from enforcement cases, sale of surplus items like old vehicles, and our favorite open records request. Fees collected from that go into this as well. That's it on the operating budget. If you don't have any questions, I will move forward to the annual report of non-financial data. This report is an annual report required by the Texas Government Code. It's due to the governor's office and miscellaneous other offices, state auditor's office, LBB, etc., by December 31st of each year. And it includes things like the required schedules and then addenda. Addenda are items that the agency puts forth to kind of highlight and shine things that make us different from other agencies. Excuse me. Some of the larger schedules that we include is our Hub Strategic Plan, which is our historically underutilized business. I'll say that 5 times fast. Our professional fee schedule, we provide a listing of space occupied, whether it's paid, leased, state-owned, which are very few, and free space. So we do have to account for all of our space that we occupy. We report that on an annual basis. And then our vehicles purchased, the type of vehicle, cost, and the miles per gallon. The addenda portion, again, this is something that the agency can kind of decide on what they want to include here. These are items that highlight what makes us unique and what makes the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission a little bit different from other state agencies. Some of the things that we include are our organization charts to kind of explain how we do business, our wet and dry status counties of Texas, local option elections. We provide a listing of those and how those have changed in the fiscal year. And then our inventory of confiscated alcoholic beverages, and a statement of revenue collections. Excuse me. So this might be a little bit difficult to see. I try to use something with contrasting colors. But if you notice here, this is our wet dry map as of August 31st. Texas currently only has 5 counties that are completely dry. So this is down from 6 from last year. Making progress. Our 5 dry counties include Borden, Hemphill, Kent, Roberts, and Throckmorton, which still currently are 100% dry. Here's our summary of confiscated alcoholic beverages. I've put them by region and then by type. The total here that we confiscated for FY19 are a little bit over 10,000 containers. So we count them by container, whether it's a keg or a bottle or a can. Excuse me. And a little over 10,000 for this year, which is over 4,400 more this year than we collected last year. I will clarify. Summary of confiscated alcoholic beverages are by enforcement, unlicensed or unlicensed locations for violations of the Alcohol Beverage Code. These differ from disallowed containers that POE has. So this is a completely different count.
Give us an example of a confiscated alcoholic, not through one of our.
Not through POE?
Right.
An example could be if let's say agents are doing inspections or some kind of undercover operation at a licensed premise and mixed beverage, for example, and they find distilled spirits that do not have the tax stamp.
Okay.
And the permittee cannot account for why they have that,
Right.
or they admit to it most of the time. So that's something that would be in violation, and that can be seized by our enforcement staff. Okay. Lastly, here's a report of our revenue collections. As an annual report, this summary includes the current and previous year. So I want to kind of explain this a little bit. This is 19 compared to 18, so it shows the decrease. However, if you do a true comparison of our revenue, you have to really look at biennia to biennia. So I'll say that again, biennia to biennia, because we do have a 2-year permit. Our licenses and permits are issued mostly very heavily in the first year of the biennium. So you'll notice here, if you look at this, we have a little bit more money collected in 18. That's typical if you were to look at all even numbered years. So 18, 16, 14, they tend to be heavier. Mixed beverages and things, we structured it like that intentionally when we did our 2-year permit. So we collect a little bit more in the first year of the biennium. So when you compare this to, on this side, it looks like we're down 3 million. In reality, if you compare biennia to biennia, we are actually up about 23.6 million. So again, that's about a 4% increase of this biennium versus the last. So because this is an annual report, it doesn't quite show our growth as we do perhaps like in the LAR where we do a 2-year comparison. So I just wanted to point that out. So, any questions on the non-financial record? Thank you very much.
Next agenda item will be a briefing on contested cases procedures. General Counsel Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have been talking about this topic for a number of months. We'll give you all an update on where we are and where things look going forward. This is an ongoing project for implementing the Sunset Directive, whereby the Commission is going to be issuing final orders on contested cases. What I'm presenting here is nothing formalized. There's nothing up for approval today. This is, again, just sort of an update for y'all on where the legal land looks. We've been developing these options largely based on best practices from our peer agencies, working with other general counsel's offices to see what works and what doesn't for the type of cases that we have. My goals for today, I want to first define some key terms. Y'all know that attorneys and bureaucrats love acronyms, right? I'm both an attorney and a bureaucrat, so I'll try to be very mindful of that and walk through what it is I'm talking about. Describes key steps in the process. Right? What have we done historically? How do things maybe change a little bit looking forward? And then finally provide a roadmap. Okay, in the Sunset report and finally the Sunset bill, the law changed regarding these contested cases. The staff had reported that the commission, y'all, should be increased duty and role in contested cases. It aligns us more with some of our peer agencies, and again, that was passed as part of the bill. All right, what's a contested case? So first, the APA, we throw that around a lot. That's the Administrative Procedures Act, right? The state of Texas, we have this. The APA, it provides the legal framework for adjudicating these regulatory disputes, like what we handle here at TABC. A contested case is basically TABC versus a permitted entity for a violation of law. It could be any number of things: tax violation, marketing, sale to minor, even trafficking. Many times, the other side will have an attorney, but often that's not the case. Most cases, obviously, are going to be handled somewhat differently. Why do we have contested cases through the administrative process instead of the actual court system? Well, part of it is simply the scope and number of these cases. TBC isn't the only agency that has contested cases. We have dozens of peer agencies that do as well. And if you were trying to handle each of those in a district court, it would simply bog the system down too much. In addition, our administrative judges, which I'm going to go to here, they have expertise in these areas. Okay, so at TABC, what does it mean? As y'all know, we have a very broad regulatory structure. It covers many different areas of law, right? My team, Legal Services Division, we handle these cases. Once they get gone from the enforcement and field divisions, they haven't been resolved, they come to Legal Services, and there are any number of different types of cases. I list a handful of them here. Retailers selling alcohol to minors might be against a wholesaler for selling a type of alcohol that a particular retailer isn't authorized to purchase, or what I list here is human trafficking violations. And then here's the statement of the law. You see this, the key provision there is subsection B. Whereas this has been a function historically delegated to the executive director, this statutory change makes this solely in y'all's purview. Again, puts us in line with other regulatory agencies. Okay, what's an administrative hearing? So here's where the State Office of Administrative Hearings comes into play, or SOA, and their internal judges, the administrative law judges that handle these cases. We have some flexibility by rule on how we want to set parameters for the cases that eventually go to SOA. I think that's going to be part of what we'll be working with you guys on going forward. There's particular provisions that we want to add above and beyond what the APA already does. And again, these cases they're bench trials. There's not a jury sitting there to make a ruling on these cases. It's simply presented to the administrative judge, who then issues what's called a proposal for decision, or PFD. This is where the judge has assessed the evidence from the trial, looked at the record, looked at the application of the law itself, right, the Alcoholic Beverage Code, and then writes again what's called the PFD, issues it to each of the parties. Part of this is where the judge recommends an actual sanction. So, say if sale the minor case, the judge will recommend that the permittee did engage in the illegal activity, and will recommend a penalty of, let's say, a suspension for 5 days or a fine of $3,000. Just making those numbers up, but that could be somewhere in the ballpark. All right, but when would you guys get involved? And historically, after the PFD is issued and parties are given the opportunity to file a briefing saying, hey, you didn't consider this, why don't you look at that? Historically, those would come in-house to TABC, where my office would brief the executive director or the deputy executive director on how to resolve the case. That's now going to you guys. And you'll be working directly with my office, our senior commission counsel, Martin Wilson. Y'all have met him. Martin has been handling administrative cases for 40 years and as good as it gets. Why Martin and I, as opposed to the attorneys that actually handle the cases? There's this important concept called the ex parte prohibition. If you imagine a lawsuit where it's Neville's liquor store versus the Chaplin liquor store, well, you wouldn't want Matt Chaplin to go and have lunch with the judge and talk about the case unless General Nettles were there as well. The same thing applies in administrative proceedings. So when we are briefing you guys on the case, we're giving you all a neutral analysis of it. Whereas if one of our advocates were talking with you guys, it'd obviously be from an advocacy standpoint. When the PFD comes, you guys are authorized to change it. You have to provide some rationale for why. You can also change the sanction that's assessed or decide there isn't going to be a sanction. But what happens here at a commission meeting? Are we going to have 10-hour meetings where everything is retried and folks come and present evidence and do oral arguments? No, that's not going to happen. Now, there's the option of allowing parties to come and make an argument in front of the commission, but that's discretionary. That's one of the decisions that we make going forward as we put this in the rule of policy and procedures. One option, and this is where most of our peer agencies do things this way, is the consent agenda, where if we have 5 cases that are up for decision at the January meeting, we simply include them on a single agenda item where that comes up for vote in front of you guys. And if you want to pull one of the cases out to discuss it individually, by all means, we could do that. If we want to simply vote on them together, then that's an option as well. That's very common. Okay, after that final order is issued, the parties get one more bite at the apple. They can file what's called a motion for rehearing. This is the commission's last opportunity to change an order, to fix a mistake, clerical or otherwise. The party in the motion has to identify what the particular error was, cite something in the evidence or the record that was overlooked, etc. This is an important step because this is the last stage that a party has before appealing the case to district court. So if a party loses a case at the commission, the party then has the opportunity to take it to district court, and then it can go all the way through the appeals process. That happens a handful of times every year. It's not terribly common, but it does happen. What are the next steps? So I've discussed rules. Many agencies actually codify their how they handle these administrative cases in administrative rules. Y'all are familiar with that process. That is an option. At the very least, we'll be developing procedures in-house for how we engage with y'all as the commissioners, setting up timelines for when would a case go in front of a particular commission meeting, etc. More to come on these, obviously. The goals, if I were to distill them down, first, we want to comply with the law, right? And that's obvious. That's always the priority for any state agency. And a big part of that is affording these parties with the appropriate level of due process. We don't want to be pulling the rug out from anybody unnecessarily, but at the same time, y'all are a voluntary commission. I can't expect for y'all to come here 6 times a year and spend a 12-hour meeting pulling through the entire record, etc. And there's ways to balance these priorities, and that's what we're going to do. And then finally, I provide sort of a high-level sketch of what a timeline might look like. Every administrative case is different. Some can be resolved in 6 months. Some of them could take 2 or even 3 years. A lot of different factors come into play. The sophistication of the parties, sophistication of the legal counsel, the size of the record. If this is a sale to minor case at a local corner store, it's probably not going to be a very large record, and that can probably get wrapped up within a year. If this is a major regulatory violation, and an administrative law judge takes 9 months to issue a 125-page proposal for decision, yeah, that process is going to take a lot longer. And with that, I'll hand it over to y'all if you have any questions.
So, all right, so give an example for if there's a criminal element involved. Would that fall under this procedure as well? Trafficking or narcotics or financial crimes?
Not quite. So our part of the adjudication is against the business entity itself, right? And whether or not that permit can continue to exist, or if that permit's going to owe the state of Texas a large fine. Concurrently, a criminal case will be brought in district court by a district attorney, by the state of Texas federal prosecutors, and there's certainly overlapping facts. But TABC in our administrative adjudication, we're not going after the human being per se, but instead the permit or license that they hold.
So let's say there's an egregious violation that involves a criminal element that will also involve us removing your license and therefore putting them out of business. Could that potentially take 2 years and they could therefore operate in plain sight while this procedure is going on?
It could potentially, but as you all are familiar with, the legislature gave us an enormous tool in that regard, section 11.614 of the code, which we've already been utilizing, right? That's the emergency order, emergency suspension provision. Real briefly, if there is an instance where we know that there's been violations at a business, and we know that there's continuing threats to public safety, right? Then sure, we'll build up an administrative case to ultimately shut them down. But we don't want them operating. So we can issue an emergency order that shuts them down for up to 90 days. Now they have the right to have an initial hearing at SOA for a judge to say, yeah, TABC's they've got authority to do this. But then we can keep them shut down for 90 days while our team is building up the case against them, which could ultimately come for you guys for a final adjudication. In reality, I don't know many of these businesses that can stay open for 90 days if they're not able to sell alcohol.
Of the contested cases now, they're handled in-house within the commission. Is there a process for oral argument now?
Yes, at the SO level or internal?
Internally.
No, there's not.
Okay. And that's something that we may allow, but would not be required, and it's not done now.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, thanks for your time.
Next is public comment.
There are none.
None at this time. Okay, thank you. The next agenda item is consideration of potential action on adoption of Rule 31.6 advisory committees. Ms. Horton.
Good morning. Again, my name is Shana Horton. I'm with the General Counsel's Office, and I'm here to present your rule items today. We're going to start with the rules that you saw. You may recognize them from your last meeting. They were proposed, published in the Texas Register. We received no formal comments on them, and so now they're before you for your decision to adopt them. The first one is Rule 31.6 to establish the ground rules for advisory committees. Essentially, this is the laying the groundwork when we do actually have advisory committees. We'll have to adopt a second rule to lay out parameters such as their charge, what they're supposed to be looking at, and that sort of thing. But this just kind of says what they're going to look like when we do get to that point. As I said, there were no comments, either positive or negative, on this, and so this is before you for your vote on adoption.
I move to approve adoption of Rule 31.6 as recommended by staff. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Steen, thank you. We have a second. We will now vote.
So I'm going to verbally say yes because my computer's.
Okay. Motion is approved.
Okay, your next item is rules 35.50 and 35.51 are related. These are the rules regarding inspections. We're doing a cycle of every 8 years. Every single premise needs to be physically inspected. And the second rule, 35.51, establishes a risk-based approach to timing of inspections so that our highest priority premises are inspected more often. These were both in response to the sunset legislation. Again, we didn't receive any comments, either positive or negative, on these, and they are before you for your decision on adoption.
Thank you. Move to approve adoption of Rule 35.50 as recommended by staff. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Marino. We have a second. We will now vote. This motion is approved.
It's not coming up for me to vote.
Is your
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry. Kicked me in the ankle.
Okay, next two items are also related, two more adoptions. These are the rules that provide for retailer samples for distillers and rectifiers permit holders and for non-resident sellers, provide the authority for those folks to provide samples to retail sellers, and also lays out how that will be taxed and when that will be taxed. There were no comments received on these, and they're now before you for your decision on adoption.
Thank you. I move to approve adoption of Rule 41.18 as recommended by staff. Is there a second to the motion? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Boatwright. We have a second. We will now vote.
I think we're off one.
Are we off one?
Yeah.
Ms. Marino? Yes, I agree.
We are approved.
The next item is the proposal for publication of proposed Rule 41.541, destruction of uninsured product after natural disaster. This is a result of Senate Bill 1210 from last legislative session, which directs the commission to provide by rule requirements governing the removal, destruction, and disposal by a retailer of uninsured ale, malt liquor, or beer that is determined to be unfit for public consumption as a result of a natural disaster. For example,
Can I stop you for a
We need
minute?
to-
I think we're off one.
Yeah, you presented two at a time, but we've got to
We
vote
gotta
on
vote
each
on
one individually. so-
41.18, we approved. We've not voted on 41.19.
We need to vote on 41.
Right. Oh, we already
That's what we
did
just
nine.
voted on.
It was.
Well, some of us missed it.
35.5.
Yeah, we don't have 501, we voted on 418, right?
Right.
Okay, so we have, let's go back. So we have voted to approve 41.18. That's correct.
Correct.
So now we need to,
41.9.
So we need to
I
go
have here
back
that
to
we voted
18.
on 41.18. So now we need to vote on 41.19.
Yes.
That's correct, okay.
Did we
gonna
need to vote
come
on
out.
35.51?
Yes,
I think we did.
we did.
Yeah.
Risk-based inspection of license and permit. We did vote on that. Okay.
41.1.
So now, I move to approve adoption of Rule 41.19 as recommended by staff. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. We have a second. We will now vote on 41.19. We're good? Motion carries. We will now move to 41.541. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Please proceed.
sorry about that.
It's all right.
41.541, as I mentioned, is regarding destruction of uninsured product after natural disaster. For example, a situation like Harvey, you've got a lot of product that you can't sell anymore because it's been impaired in some way due to the disaster. We wanted to, well, the Senate has directed us to adopt rules that will essentially make it a little bit less onerous to report that. We're getting a little more time so that when you're dealing with the immediate aftermath of an emergency like Harvey, you're not worrying about, oh, I've only got 2 days to do something. We're getting 30 days to provide an affidavit that you've destroyed the product. And then you just have to keep some records so that we can look for them if we want to check up on an audit. This that's really all I wanted to say about this. It benefits the regulated community because it would remove the impediments and allow more flexibility for retailers to destroy inventory in response to the disaster. We don't expect any increased costs to them. In fact, might even decrease costs to them. So this is before you now for your decision on proposal.
Any questions? I move to approve publication of Rule 41.541, destruction of uninsured product after a natural disaster, as recommended by staff. Is there a second to this motion? Thank you, Commissioner Marino. We have a second. We will now vote. Motion is approved.
Item 6.7 is consideration and action on publication of proposed rule 50.32 alcohol delivery driver training program. Senate Bill 1450 last session added alcohol beverage code chapter 57 regarding consumer delivery permits. The new language directs the commission to adopt by rule and administer an alcohol delivery training program for the purpose of training and certifying delivery drivers contracting with or employed by the holder of a mixed beverage permit or consumer delivery permit. The proposed rule provides that we will offer the training here direct from TABC, and that persons who complete it will be awarded a certificate that lasts 2 years like the seller server permit. The rule includes the rebuttable presumption laid out in alcoholic beverage code that a delivery driver did not act with criminal negligence in delivering to a minor intoxicated person if the delivery driver holds a training certificate and made the delivery as a result of a malfunction of a conforming consumer delivery app. The rule also provides circumstances under which the commission may suspend or revoke a training certificate. This item is now for you for your decision on proposal publication.
Questions, comments? All right, this is an important rule, and glad we are proceeding. I move to approve the publication of Rule 50.32, alcohol delivery driver training programs, as recommended by staff. Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Boatright, thank you for the second. We have a second. We will now vote. We are approved.
That completes your rule docket for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is executive session. The commission will go into executive session under Government Code 551.074 and 551.071. Time is 12:03. We are now in recess.
you. The Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission has concluded its executive session, is now in regular open session. The date is Tuesday, January 28th, 2020, and the time is 12:38 p.m. Next is potential action item on items discussed in executive session. No action will be taken. And the next is the announcement of the next meeting date. So I should use this. Next regular scheduled commission meeting date is planned for Tuesday, March 24th in San Antonio. Outstanding. You guys won't have to drive very far. Unfortunately, Commissioner Atkins has to drive far every time.
This one's in both.
Yeah. 900 miles.
That's well said. Well said. All right. Anybody have a problem with that date? March 24th. We good? Good, good. Okay. Let me just double check here. That is not during spring break, so that should not be a problem. Perfect.
Have you all figured out where it's going to be?
We believe it's going to be UTSA.
Downtown.
Oh, okay.
Downtown. We have an agreement with them, but we don't have anything in writing, so we couldn't announce it as specifically being there, but we're 90% sure that they're.
And a little barge cruise the night before with
Some breakfast tacos from Meet the FM.
Perfect.
Yeah, all planned out.
We might get fixed on San Antonio to do that. All right. All right. We have no problem with March 24th, 2020 in San Antonio. Well, that is confirmed. We are now adjourned. The time is 12:40 p.m. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen.